Queen Elizabeth I remains one of history's most captivating figures, a monarch whose image was sculpted with deliberate care to project sovereignty, intellect, and divine favor. Known as the Virgin Queen, she was the shining symbol of England's rise as a Protestant superpower and the mastermind behind the defeat of the Spanish Armada. But behind her radiant public persona lay a private world of fear, vanity, and extreme control, especially over her body and hygiene. In an era when cleanliness was more ritual than science, Elizabeth's hygiene habits would shock modern sensibilities. She avoided water, the very element we associate with cleansing, fearing it could weaken her and threaten the carefully crafted image she worked so hard to maintain. Bathing, which today is routine, was for her a rare, arduous luxury, prepared with the precision of a royal coronation and involving multiple servants. Instead of bathing, Elizabeth relied on a daily regimen of changing linen shifts, the undergarments closest to her skin, sometimes multiple times a day. These linens were believed to draw out impurities and keep the body clean through contact alone. Rose water, vinegar rinses, and complex herbal infusions crafted by her apothecaries were delicately applied by attendants to mask odors and refresh her without wetting her skin. Though today it might seem unsanitary, these practices were considered proper and even admirable by Elizabeth's contemporaries. The Queen surrounded herself with hundreds of dresses, perfumed gloves, and aromatic handkerchiefs, meticulously demanding that every detail of her appearance be flawless. But it wasn't cleanliness as we know it, it was an elaborate illusion. One of the cruel ironies of her reign was her obsession with sugar, a precious and rare import in Tudor England. Elizabeth indulged heavily in sugar-laden sweets like candied violets and marzipan, symbols of England's rising wealth. But dental hygiene was rudimentary, and the Queen's sweetened paste made from sugar and herbs accelerated tooth decay. By the 1590s, her teeth had blackened and fallen out, causing foul breath and slurred speech, ailments she fiercely concealed. Her declining smile even influenced fashion. Noblewomen darkened their own teeth with soot and charcoal to imitate the Queen, turning decay into a bizarre symbol of status. Elizabeth's iconic pale, flawless face was no accident either. It was a mask of power, crafted from Venetian sarse, a toxic blend of white lead and vinegar that gradually scarred her skin. Her lip color, made from mercury-containing cinnabar, poisoned her slowly, causing mood swings and neurological symptoms. Yet she refused to abandon this dangerous cosmetic, believing her image was her greatest weapon. In her later years, her face was almost a fragile mask, so delicate that even touching it risked damage. Portrait artists were ordered to paint an idealized version, erasing wrinkles and decay, preserving the myth of the eternal Virgin Queen. Behind the tapestries and gold leaf ceilings of her palaces, Elizabeth lived without plumbing, toilets, or running water. Her private toilet was an ornate chair with a chamber pot, emptied by a trusted nobleman, the groom of the stool, a position of immense influence and discretion. Waste was handled by servants known as gong farmers, who removed it under cover of night. Despite the use of herbs and incense to mask odors, the palaces were plagued by foul smells and unsanitary conditions. Elizabeth's avoidance of water was not ignorance or laziness but a calculated defense. Bathing meant vulnerability, exposure of the flesh, and risk of illness or the erasure of the mask she wore for her realm. She doubled down on scent, perfuming her gloves, handkerchiefs, and even her gloves, garments serving both to conceal and project power. Her hair, powdered and stiffened with egg whites or sugar water, was often hidden under elaborately scented wigs, masking thinning and damage from years of lead poisoning. Elizabeth's relationship with hygiene was deeply intertwined with her need for control and the preservation of her myth. Water, viewed then not as cleansing but as a danger, was a threat to her carefully constructed image. She understood that her body was more than flesh. It was a symbol of power, purity, and untouchability. Unlike today's standards, Elizabeth's hygiene was about illusion. Her perfume ritual was almost theatrical, involving attendants dabbing rose water on her wrists and spritzing her behind the ears. These scented pomanders, ornate orb-shaped accessories filled with resins and herbs, were tucked discreetly into her bodice or attached to her belt. When foul odors wafted through the palace, She lifted these to her nose, effectively creating a scented barrier between herself and the less refined world. Her garments were heavy, layered, and perfumed, crafted to hide the body and preserve its carefully managed scent. She gifted perfumed gloves to favored courtiers, spreading her scent as a mark of favor and influence, an invisible power she wielded like a weapon. Bathing her hair was almost unthinkable. She wore powdered wigs scented and curled to perfection, hiding thinning hair and scalp damage caused by years of toxic cosmetics. Beneath this facade, Elizabeth's skin was fragile, marred by open sores and lesions from the lead-based makeup she refused to abandon. Some courtiers claimed her face could crumble if touched, a literal mask she guarded fiercely. In her later years, Elizabeth's paranoia about her image grew. Mirrors were banned from her private chambers, and she insisted on stylized portraits that erased every imperfection. A chambermaid was reportedly tasked solely with reapplying powder to her shoulders when no one else was looking. The Queen's personal hygiene was no longer private. It was a political act, a daily performance of power and control. This obsession extended even to her movements within the palace. Elizabeth traveled frequently between royal residences, partly to escape the foul smells that accumulated in court life, where chamber pots, cesspits, and a lack of plumbing made the air thick with human waste. The palace floors were strewn with rushes perfumed with oils, though these were rarely changed, allowing layers of dirt and decay to build up beneath. Yet despite these conditions, Elizabeth was seen as remarkably clean for her time. Her hygiene was judged not by soap and water but by her flawless, powdered image and the powerful aura she projected. Cleanliness was survival, an armor against vulnerability and decay. Queen Elizabeth I's hygiene habits reveal a monarch who understood the power of image better than anyone. She transformed her body into a symbol, a mask that both concealed and commanded. Her rituals were extreme, sometimes grotesque, but they sustained her reign and her legend. Behind the myth of the Virgin Queen was a woman who battled time, decay, and disease with powder, perfume, and an iron will, crafting an enduring image that still captivates the world centuries later. Elizabeth I's reign is often remembered as a golden age of English history, marked by political strength, cultural flourishing, and national pride. Yet beneath the glittering surface lay a complex and troubling reality, one shaped not just by diplomacy and warfare, but by an obsession with control over her own body and image. Her personal hygiene habits, strange and extreme by today's standards, reveal a monarch who understood better than anyone that perception was power. In a time when science had yet to unlock the mysteries of health and cleanliness, Elizabeth chose to create a carefully crafted illusion of purity and perfection. This illusion came at a great cost. Her avoidance of water bathing was not simply born out of superstition but was a deliberate defense mechanism. Water, believed to open the body to disease and vulnerability, threatened to wash away not just dirt but the carefully maintained mask of youth and strength she wore like armor. The lead-based cosmetics she applied daily, Venetian cers mixed with vinegar, whitened her skin to a ghostly pallor, the ultimate symbol of nobility and divine favor. Yet, the very product that gave her this iconic look slowly corroded her flesh beneath, leaving open sores, lesions, and a fragile complexion. Her lips, stained with mercury-laden cinnabar, betrayed her to poisoning, causing mood swings and neurological decline. Despite the physical toll, Elizabeth remained committed to this ritual. To her, the flawless image was more than vanity. It was a political tool. She was no longer simply a woman. She was the embodiment of England itself, a figure whose visage inspired loyalty, awe, and fear. Any crack in this image could have threatened her authority and destabilized the realm. Her rituals extended beyond cosmetics. The layers of heavy, perfumed clothing and her reliance on scented gloves and handkerchiefs were part of a sensory fortress, shielding her from the filthy realities of court life, palaces without plumbing, where chamber pots and cesspits reeked just beyond the heavy curtains. Her frequent changes of linen shifts, the rare full baths, and the reliance on herbal infusions were all woven into a complex performance of control. Over time, her paranoia about her image grew. Mirrors were banned from private chambers, and painters were ordered to idealize her portraits, erasing any sign of aging or decay. The queen's physical decline became a closely guarded secret, hidden behind layers of powder and paint, just as political weaknesses were concealed behind displays of strength. This intense focus on controlling how she was seen was both her greatest strength and a tragic vulnerability. It allowed Elizabeth to rule effectively in a patriarchal world that doubted women's power, but it also exacted a heavy personal price. Her body, poisoned by cosmetics and neglected in hygiene, betrayed her despite her best efforts. Yet in the paradox of her hygiene lies her enduring legacy. Elizabeth I transformed herself into a symbol larger than life, a monarch who defied mortality through image and myth. She turned hygiene, a deeply personal and physical act, into an art of survival and political theater. In the end, her body may have failed her, but her carefully crafted image conquered time. Centuries later, she remains immortalized not for the state of her skin or the smell of her court, but as the Virgin Queen, a legend shaped as much by powder and perfume as by crown and scepter.